Hello and welcome to another video by Day Night Gaming. Now today I'd like to discuss with you editing the interface. Now as you can see here, this is what's called the default user interface, and I highly recommend that people change their interface to match their personal taste. Now as you can see here, the default only has one hotbar, and there's a lot of things that I personally don't like about it. So that's what inspired me to make this video. So in order to edit this, is you click you bring up your options and then hit the interface editor. Now depending on if you're free to play or if you're subscribed, a subscriber has all 6 quick bars unlocked, but free to play I think only has 1 or 2, and I think preferred players have 4, but everything else all players can have access to. So first off, let me show you how to do some of these things. So if you are a subscriber, you can click each one of these things, like any one of these widgets. So here I'm going to highlight this one by clicking it, and I'm going to click enabled, and that'll create the quick bar so it's visibly clickable. So I'm going to go ahead and enable all of these. Now, let's say you want to increase the size of them or shrink them. There's a scale slider button. So as you can see here, it'll get bigger or smaller depending on what you want. And you can do that with any widget. So let's say focus target cast bar. You want that to be bigger because you want to be able to see what your focus target is casting. You can make the cast bar bigger so it's easier to see. Plus, if you click things, you can move them around wherever you want. So I always like to have the target cast bar somewhere in my field of view. So I'm going to put it right there. I'm going to increase the scale. Now some other things that you can do, which is really cool, is going back to the quick bar. As you can see here, it has number of slots 12. As you can see here, I'm not using all my quick bar buttons on this quick bar, so if I wanted to, I can shrink it. So I'm going to shrink it down to 10, and there you go. So the ones that are clear are no longer clickable. If I wanted to, I can also move it around so that right now it's up and down. Let's say if I wanted to be left and right, I can go down to slots per row. And right now, so it's 1 slot per row. And then if I move it to 2 slots, 1, 2 per row. And basically that's how you would use it to reshape what you wanted it to be. So here it's 12, now it's on a left to right. Let's say you wanted to get a little bit more screen. As you can see here, you can show background or you can remove it. So right here it's without. So I'm going to save that so you can see. Actually, okay, so show background. So I'm going to save it and exit so you can see what it looks like. So it has this gray border. If you wanted to remove that so you can have more visual screen, you just unclick it. So show background, turn that off. Also, if you wanted to make the things a bit more clear, as you can see, the background's gone. If you wanted to make the buttons themselves more clear, you can change their alpha. So as you can see here, it's like near invisible. You can still kind of see it, but it's like really shadowed out. So because of that, if you see here, you can actually see behind the buttons. So it's up to you what you want to do. Some ones you might not need to be completely visible. But please note that when you do make them shadowed out, when you actually activate the abilities, it also makes it hard to see. So, but yeah, you can do that. Some other things that I highly recommend doing is moving some clutter that you might not really care too much about. So as you can see here, I've already moved the target cast bar. That to me is very important. But let's say you want to have all your buttons in the same place. So let's move these out of the way for a bit. Player cast bar, that's my player cast bar. Okay, so move that up for now. And then quick bar. So let's move that one. buff tray. Let's move that. Alright, so these ones, slots per row, let's make them all 12. Alright, let's move that. So here's an example. So I'm going to grab this one first. So just in case you want to know, this grid is very helpful. So this bright white line and this one as well, those are the centers of the screen. So yeah, let's move that there, move that there. All right. And shrink that down, let's shrink that down. Actually, let's have that there. All right. So, as you can see here, I can have all my important buttons right there. So I'm going to save it so you can visually see what's going on here. So as you can see there, all right. And then notice how there's some gaps. So you going back and forth into the interface editor is really good, so you can visually see what you want. And I highly recommend saving frequently, just in case you accidentally do something that you don't like. And if you wanted to, you can always click this and revert back to an older thing. But let's say this is how I want it. Then I'll type in what I want it to be called. Then I'll click this right here, this little disk button, and that'll save it. And if I wanted to load, I would go to something and then hit the load button. And let's say if I didn't like what I did, you know, I can click the thing and then click this trash can, it'll delete it. Now let's say this grid is making it a bit hard for you to see where you want things to go. You can click the grid off. That'll show that. So I like to do that when I'm like right before I finalize. I want to look what it looks like. And then you can have Snap UI grid, which is really nice. And see, as you can see here, it'll try to like straighten things out as you move things. So when I finalize things, I'll click Snap to Grid and move them in their final positions. All right, some other things that you could do that I highly recommend. Okay, so you can also flip this. So let's say I have these, and I don't like having my target picture all the way over here. I want it more in the center, so I know exactly what I'm fighting. Makes it easier to identify, and that's just my personal preference. So what you can do is you can flip, and it'll switch it over. And let's say mine, I'm going to flip that too, and I'm going to hide a bit of my picture because I know what I look like behind theirs. But if I do that, make sure that they're offset, because you want to be able to see your own resolve bar in case you're doing PvP. So you want this upper area showing. Plus you don't want to completely block out your picture, because one, the resolve bar, but also you want to be able to click your picture if you need to like leave group or whatnot. So I like to do that. Another thing that I like to do is I like to move my experience bar to the top, because I don't really need to see that, to be honest. And I don't really look up as much as I look down in the center. So yeah, I don't want this taking up my bottom screen, because that's where I'm always looking for to see if my abilities are active. Alright, so let's see. Focus target, I like to have that up there. Temporary ability bar, you can have that there. One thing I dislike about this is you can't move the slots per row on the temporary ability bar. And I really don't like having my temporary ability bar being left to right. I wish I could have it in a square. Like a good example of a square is, let me grab this one. So sometimes I want to have it by 3 by 3. So like this right here is really nice. So like these are my other things that I use. They're not part of my rotation. So I like to have things like that in a 3 by 3. And some things I like to have in a 2 by 2, placed in different areas. So being able to modify like that is really nice. So I wish we could do that with our temporary ability bar. I don't like it being like this. But, you know, it is what it is. So some other things. I don't know why the target of target is always like down there. I like to move that into a more visible area, because target of target is pretty important. I like to know its cast bar, and then of course make that bigger. Now DPS don't really need this so much, but it's really nice if you're a tank. You want to be able to know, like, you know, that type of information. I like to know how far my cast is going. Tutorials, I generally, okay, so a lot of there's things that I like to turn off, and tutorials is one of them. I like to unclick the enable because I don't really care too much about that stuff. Some other things that is really nice. Let's see, social notifications. I don't really care too much about that, but if you do, that's cool. But I generally click that off as well. Focus target cast bar, focus target. Just the messages. Oh yeah, actually I like that there. Okay. But yeah, target of cast bar, I really like to make sure I can see it. So I put it right in front of me, because if like a healer's casting a heal, that for me that's like priority number 1. All right, now we're the buff buttons. Okay, player buff tray and player debuff. Now, when you increase the buff tray and the debuff tray, oh, hold on, let me click that. Let me show you. So when you increase the scale, it makes it easier to see what buffs and debuffs they have. Right, same thing with ion scale. So if there's anything very important that you need to look out for, that's really good. For player buff, it doesn't really matter so much, but player debuff is usually really important. You know, if there's any like, you know, really nasty things that you want to be able to cleanse, it's good to like increase the size of that so you can see what is affecting you. And then target frame. Buff scale, you probably want to increase that. That way you know. That way you know what kind of buffs they have. If they have any type of reflecting moves that's really nasty, you want to be able to do that. Another thing that you want to do is show information text. I'm going to show you that in a second. So as you can see here, my HP bar is just a red bar. But when you show information text, you'll actually see it by percentage and actual HP. So as you can see here, it actually says percentage and the actual number of HP that the target has. So I always like to click that on, show information text. Remember, you have to click the target frame and the player frame. So I think that's very important. So I make sure I activate on all of those. Show information effect. Okay, focus target. Alright, make sure everything is good. Alright, there's one other thing. This I don't really care about. But I guess I'll put the toggle there, I guess. Yeah. I usually just disable it because I don't really care. I click it once and I never touch it again. But yeah. Actually, I'll just unenable it so you guys can see that. So yeah, this alignment toggle, I usually just move it off somewhere and then click it off. Because, you know, once I've set my alignment, I don't really ever change that personal preference. But where's the large tooltip? Oh, there it is. Okay, so the last thing is large tooltip. I like to unclick this attach to minimap. Okay, so first I'll show you what it looks like with it. So I'm gonna close that. Okay, so here, as you can see here on the bottom right above my minimap, you have this triangle thing that says cargo hold, legacy stronghold, crippling slash. It does, you know, whatever it says it does. There you go. What I like to do is I like to unattach, so I unclick the attach to minimap. And what that does is I can now move it to wherever I want it to be. So let's say I want to move it to somewhere more visible. So I'll put it like, say, right here. So if I go over that cargo hold, as you can see there, so ability makes it a bit easier for me when if I put it to somewhere that I really want it to be. For me, I usually put it, you know, like over there, but that, you know, depends on where you put your chat window. So for me, it's there, so it's kind of out of the way, but it's more bold. It's more easier to read. When it's over here, it's like, you know, it's a little thing, but here you actually see pretty well. Hold on, actually I put it about here. So there you go, see? And of course, personal preference. You know, you don't have to copy what I'm doing. You always want to tailor it to how you play. So, you know, there's other stuff that I do, but these are the basics. So there you go. Hope this video helped, and you know, until next time, take care. Goodbye.